Welcome to the Team SNG deck profile, guys. Today we're going to be talking about an updated version of the Crusadia Mekk-Knight profile I took to London YCS 2019. While this is all going on, make sure you guys are staying safe. Also, check out our Facebook page, links in the description below. And check out some of the other videos on the channel. Leave us a like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you thought of this deck and how you would get around the Time 8 lock, which we will be discussing in this profile. Alright, so this deck is all about controlling zones and blocking off zones from your opponent. And that is done through the Mekk-Knight engine. It's also about turboing out the big boss monster in Mekk-Knight Crusadia Max, and that's done through the Crusadia engine. So the two engines work really well together. It's a little bigger than a normal deck. I think it's about 44 cards, if I remember correctly. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first card we run is 3 copies of Crusadia Maximus. This is one of our Crusadias. It allows our monster that it's linked to do double damage, as long as that monster is a Crusadia link monster. So it can help us push for game if we go second, but effectively it's here because of the name Crusadia. The next card we run is 3 copies of Crusadia Arborea. This is our tuner, but that's not what we use her for at all. What she's really here for is because, again, the name Crusadia, but the other reason is if your Crusadia link monster was to be destroyed, or if a Crusadia monster is to be destroyed while she is in the grave, you can banish her to protect that monster. So she acts as protection for our big boss monster. We then have Crusadia Draco. This is the Crusadia engine's recursion. Typically, you're going to be searching for this off of Crusadia Magius, which is in the extra deck. And we run 2 Crusadia Reclusia. Previously, I don't think I ran this, or I may have ran it at 1. I don't know how I feel about this because it can act as a negative card in the sense that you're going to take something off of your board to use its effect. But it does take something off of your opponent's board by popping it. If you have Arborea engraved, though, you can target this card and target your opponent's card. And because this card would be destroyed by card effect, you can banish Arborea to protect this. So that is a good part of the reason we run 3 Arborea and 2 of this. Finally, we run 2 Crusadia Leonis, and this gives our link monster its link to piercing damage. All the Crusadia monsters can special summon themselves in defense to a zone a link monster points to once per turn. So that's why we run a large engine of them, because they are extenders. Onto the Mekk-Knight engine. The Mekk-Knights can all be special summoned to zones that zones that have 2 cards in the column. So if you have a spell and a monster in the extra monster zone, you can special summon this. If you have a monster on your opponent's side of the field and you have a monster in the extra monster zone, you can special summon this. Any 2 cards in the column. It can be traps, monsters, or extra monster zone monsters. So the first card we run is 3 copies of Purple Nightfall. You banish him to search another one. And that acts as a quick effect, so you can use it to dodge effects. The next Mekk-Knight that we run is Mekk-Knight Blue Sky. When he's special summoned to the field, you get to search for a Mekk-Knight for every card your opponent controls in the column. And this comes up really well, and it pairs really well with a card that goes... one of our extra engine cards that we will talk about when we get there. And we also run 2 copies of Mekk-Knight Indigo Eclipse. Mekk-Knight Indigo Eclipse is probably the best card for this deck because of the fact that it allows us to move, and because he allows himself to be moved from column to column as a quick effect, he pairs really well with the World Legacy spell and trap lineup that this deck has, allowing you to turn off monsters, traps, or spells. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the spell and traps, but he works really well with them, and his move ability isn't a hard once per turn, so if you have 2 copies of him on the field, you can move him twice, allowing you to effectively block off 4 zones from your opponent. Finally, for the Mekk-Knights, we run 1 copy of Mekk-Knight Yellow Star. I've had some people suggest that we should run Red Moon rather than Yellow Star, but I prefer to run Yellow Star because back row is typically more of an issue for this deck. And so Yellow Star is what I tend to run because removing the back row is more important than removing monsters. There's enough ways to do that. That does it for the Mekk-Knight engine. So as you can see, it's significantly smaller than the Crusadia engine. Onto the extra cards we run. We won 3 copies of Nightmare Corruptor Iblis. Now this is one of the main normal summons the deck has. So what you're going to do is you're going to normal summon this, you're going to link this off. That'll then special summon it on the opponent's side of the field, and then your opponent can only special summon link monsters while it remains on the field. So this is your way of playing around Nibiru, for one. But also, it can create a really interesting lock with Tiamat, because if you lock off the extra monster zone and your opponent is playing a link-focused deck or a pendulum-focused deck, where they're kind of required to go into the extra monster zone, if you lock off the extra monster zone with Tiamat, they can't summon link monsters. They can only special summon link monsters until they get rid of this. So, it creates that interesting lock. Obviously, the second thing we run then is 3 copies of Iron Dragon Tiamat. That's because the Tiamat lock is a really valuable thing this deck can utilize. And finally, we run 3 copies of World Legacy World Crown. Now, this acts as an extra Crusadia monster because of the fact that it can special summon itself to a zone of link monster points to, but also it lets us set up our graveyard for Lib the World Key Master, who just gives this deck the ability to get into the control game really easily. Moving on to the spells, we run 1 copy of Crusadia Power and 1 copy of Crusadia Testament. The Power and the Testament, they're really win more kind of cards. They're nice to see, but they're not necessary. And at the end of the day, you can actually search them using Regulex in the extra deck. So, I'm not massively concerned about running multiple copies of either of these. We run 2 copies of World Legacy Succession. It's just a good World Legacy spell to have, and, you know, it is searchable within the deck using multiple different cards from the extra deck. We run 2 copies of World Legacy's Memory. This is basically a combo starter for us if we get into trouble. However, it does lock us into Mekk-Knights, so we do have to be a little bit careful about when we use it. And finally for the spells, we run World Legacy Key. This lets us return one of our banished Mekk-Knights to our hand, which could be useful, but more often than not what we're actually using this for is because it turns off trap cards in the same column as a Mekk-Knight. So what you can do is you activate this, and your opponent can't use trap cards if they are activated in the same column as the Mekk-Knight. Any of your Mekk-Knight monsters. Hence the reason the Indigo Eclipse can be really valuable, because you can move Indigo Eclipse in reaction to a trap card and turn off its effect. Alright, and that does it for the spells. Onto the traps, we run 1 Crusadia Crawler. Typically, this is what you're going to want to search off of your Regulex, because it will allow you to search for a World Legacy spell or trap and add it to your hand. We also have 2 copies of World Legacy Secret. This acts very similar to World Legacy Key, where it turns off effects in the same column as a Mekk-Knight. But this one turns off monster effects. So this is actually the most valuable and the best one for us to see. It also lets us special summon Mekk-Knights from the grave. So we activate this, we get to special summon a Mekk-Knight back from the graveyard, and we also get to turn off monster effects in the same column as this. So typically what you'll do is you'll wait for your opponent to activate a monster effect, and then you'll activate this and special summon the Mekk-Knight to the column where the monster is situated to turn off their effects. And finally, we run 1 copy of World Legacy's Whispers. World Legacy Whispers, again, it's like Secret and World Legacy Secret and World Legacy Key, but this one turns off spell effects. Alright, that does it for the main deck overall. Let's get on into the extra deck. So in the extra deck, we run 1 copy of Salamangreat Almirage. Almirage is basically here to be link summoned off of Nightmare Corruptor Ibli, because it's a link 1 and Ibli meets its requirements of having less than 1,000 attack. So this just helps us get our combo started. We run 1 copy, as already preluded to, Lib the World Keen Blade Master. What this card lets us do is it lets us set a World Legacy Key, a World Legacy Secrets, or a World Legacy Whispers from our deck onto the field during our main phase. So it lets us set any World Legacy spell or trap, but those are typically the ones you want to use this for. There is one problem though, which is this card requires you to have a World Legacy card in the grave already, which is why we run 3 World Legacy Crowns, because if you can find a way to get World Legacy Crown into the graveyard, then you can go into this without any trouble. Onto the Crusadia extra deck lineup, we run 3 copies of Crusadia Magius. Typically, you're going to use 2 to get all the way up to Avermax, assuming that you go the Crusadia route of that. So it's good for us to have 3 copies so that we can utilize 2 and potentially have a 3rd in case we need to go into the combo a 2nd time. We were on 2 of the preluded Crusadia Regulex. Just lets us search for a spell and trap. We run 2 Crusadia Equimax. This lets us go for the OTK if we're in real trouble and we've gone 2nd. It could let us potentially go for the OTK. There's a really interesting interaction you can do with this, where if you have Indigo Eclipse on the field in attack position, you can attack with Indigo Eclipse, and then activate Indigo Eclipse's effect as a quick effect, move it to a zone that Equimax points to, and then attack with Equimax, which will be boosted by Indigo Eclipse, allowing you effectively to get 2 attacks off with Indigo Eclipse. So when I went to YCS last year, I did that to push for game in one of my rounds, so that is a nice little interaction this deck can do. And that does it for the pure Crusadia lineup. Now onto the Mekk-Knight lineup, we run 2 copies of Mekk-Knight of the Morning Star. What this lets us do is it lets us pitch a World Legacy card or a Mekk-Knight monster from our hand, and search a World Legacy card and add it to our hand. So with this and Lib, you potentially can search out 2 of your World Legacy cards that work with the Mekk-Knights to turn off effects. So you could turn off spells and traps, or you could turn off spells and monster effects, or traps and monster effects, depending on whatever it is that you're matching up against. We run 1 copy of Mech-Knight Spectrum Supreme. This card doesn't come up that often with this deck. Typically, you're blowing straight past Link 3s into your Link 4s, because you're going to use either Mekk-Knight of the Morning Star and Lib, or Mekk-Knight of the Morning Star and Regulex, or Equimax and Magius to go into the next card on our list, which is Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avermax. This is the big boss monster of the deck. The whole deck is sort of tuned around rushing into him, getting to him as quickly as we can, and being able to push for game with him, control the game. He gains 2 benefits. He's protected by Arborea because of Crusadia, and he's also gains the benefit that he can turn off effects because of Mekk-Knight. And so he gains 2 effects based on just his name. On top of that, he can self-honest with any monster that battles him, as long as he's battling something special summoned. And if he's removed from the field, then you get to spin something back to the deck. So he can be really powerful that way. Best boss monster in the game, in my opinion. Finally, we run 1 copy of Borrelsword Dragon. This is for when we go 2nd, and Crusadia Equimax just can't get the job done. Borrelsword probably can. That's really it. Alright, and that does it for the deck profile. Thank you guys for watching, and if you've enjoyed it, make sure you check out the video, hopefully coming out a little later this week, where I will be doing 3 test hands with this deck. Just to say, check out the Facebook page, like, comment, subscribe, look at other videos on the channel, and don't forget, let me know how you would play around a Time Maiden lock that makes it so you can only special summon Link monsters, but you can't summon till the Link monster zone. And with that, I will see you guys at the next profile.